This is the second of 3 videos under Belong. In the previous video, we covered the model, and in this one, we examine the structure. As already highlighted, the need to join or lead a men's discipleship group is paramount. Jesus modeled this for us with his 12 disciples, as did Paul through his shared ministry, discipleship, and empowerment of others. In fact, the 8 virtues prescribed by Peter to confirm our calling and election are nearly impossible to fully realize outside of such a relational model. Accordingly, any disciple serious about being and making disciples must come to wholeheartedly embrace this element and do so within the context of accountability. Accountability finds its right place in discipleship, where by converting it into an acronym, it becomes the perfect placeholder for 13 key discipleship group elements. If humility is the soil for all virtues, then an accountability group is the engine room for authentic discipleship. Without the ability to know and be known by another, the sacred discipleship practices of confession, brotherly affection, accountability, instruction, and correction almost certainly go unpracticed. In addition to this, accountability has often been misunderstood and applied in an unhelpful or legalistic manner, resulting in its decline among Christian men. Call to Conquer seeks to redeem and reinvent this very same word by using it as an acronym instead. That is, by using it to define 3 of the core elements of an authentic discipleship small group, being structure, members, and content. Accordingly, this acronym assists to define our spiritual unit, with the previously mentioned different components being structure, members, and content, each of which we're now going to examine and unpack in more detail. The first being structure, or more specifically, an apprenticeship, intimate, integrated, and tactical structure. By apprenticeship, we're talking about modeled. That is, words are cheap and often ineffective, especially when the message isn't modeled. Don't expect to lead others where you haven't been. This is the quintessential attribute of an apprenticeship and leads into the next point, which is equipped. This involves training that results in an empowered learner, probably best summed up in the fish for a man versus teach a man to fish adage. That is, to call oneself a disciple means to walk your talk as a disciple and make or model and equip other disciples to do the same. By intimate, we're meaning trust. Given the presence of a recognized leader and the commitments given by the members, the D group or discipleship structure lends itself to building deep trust between the members. And vulnerable. Gathering in small same-sex groups is a giant step forward to creating an intimate discipleship setting, primarily because it facilitates vulnerability among men, something as common as hen's teeth, to be honest, but something without which the grace and presence of God through the Holy Spirit is often absent. Integrated, that is divergent. Any truly authentic gospel witness should strive to constitute a diverse gathering of multi-denominational, multi-generational, multiracial, and multi-class disciples. Indeed, to learn to live with and love those unlike ourselves is an essential quality of any disciple. In fact, it is the very mark of our discipleship. And lastly, tactical, that is accessible. One of the best attributes of a D group is that they can meet anywhere and any time that best suits the members. This makes them very easy to join. And replicable. Another excellent attribute is its ability to easily and cheaply duplicate itself. Essentially, every time a member grows up to meet the requirements for D group leadership, a new group is theoretically birthed. The Holy Spirit, however, must of course lead the practice. That is structure. The second being members, or more specifically, a committed, confessing, open, understanding, teachable, and yardstickable members or membership. By committed, let's talk attendance. For if our heart is where our treasure lies, then our heads are where we spend our time. Without a head commitment, we cannot be committed to any change or transformation in our thinking. Leadership. Trust is the basis for any relationship. how much more then it comes to matters of eternity. If your D group leader has qualified to lead, then it is incumbent on every member to follow, of course within the confines of their conscience and privacy. What happens in D group stays in D group, period. By confessing, we're referring to being forgiven, that is by God for our sin, and healed by God through the removal of our sin and through a righteous man's prayer. By being open, we're talking about being known. That is to voluntarily, not by force, make oneself known, the good, the bad, and the ugly. By understanding, we refer to brotherly affection. That is to have the love and welfare of one's brothers in mind and heart, especially where love and welfare might be undeserving or very challenging. By teachable, we are talking about humble. Humility is the soil in which all virtues grow. Simply put, without it, you can't expect much help from God. And yardstickable, or measurable, we measure everything today. Our academic progress, our work performance, our health and fitness levels, our cars. Why then does it seem so foreign that we should measure or benchmark our faith levels? How else are we going to know if we are growing or advancing in our faith or not? Accordingly, cheap grace says that measuring our spiritual maturity amounts to legalism. However, true grace encourages us to examine and test our faith to ensure it is built and measures up to the statute of the fullness of Christ. That's members. The third element being content, or more specifically, a biblical, living, native, and actionable content. By biblical, we're talking about, of course, the Bible, books, and teaching. The old adage states, rubbish in, rubbish out, and never was it truer when it comes to how and what we choose to fill our minds with. Choose your theologians, authors, and teachers carefully, for it is by the renewing of our minds that we are transformed, in order to test and discern the perfect will of God. No renewed mind equals no perfect will of God. Obviously, we do all of this in conjunction with the Holy Spirit's leading and power. By living, we mean personal. Christianity is safest to the flesh, that is, but most dangerous in the spirit when experienced at arm's length. That is, provided it never really becomes personal. It will never really save me or change me. By doing away with the crowds and gathering in small same-sex groups, there is nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. And relevant. Similar to practical, however, the difference being the discussion and application of biblical truth within a personal context. This is what brings good content to life. Included alongside is the Call to Conquer battle plan checkup sheet, to be used in your discipleship group for facilitating deeper and strategic group reflection and discussion. More about this under battle. By native or member sourced, that is, member input and content is essential to the development of the members through teaching and research opportunities and development. And contextual, gospel application must take place first and foremost within a local context. That is where God has you right now. And actionable, that is practical. The only true theology is a practical theology. Without meaningful and relevant application, theology is simply academic philosophy, void of the power and purposes of God. The triune God is as much the God of salvation as he is of sex, of ministry as he is of money, of tithing as he is of time. Don't leave God out of any of his creation. And applicable, the Call to Conquer discipleship assessment has been created to facilitate the development of every disciple based on their specific level of maturity. This allows for individual paths to be taken, but all with the same destination in view. This resource forms a key part of your Call to Conquer discipleship journey and is explained in the next element of build. So, there we have it, the importance of accountability as an acronym in defining our spiritual unit's structure.